Hey, Brad. Thanks for joining us today. As way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a motivational speaker and author, but all those revolve around a kind of obscure thing. I am a memory improvement expert and a memory athlete. I go to competitions when I have time these days, and I compete to see who has the best memory. I don't have the best memory in the world, but I have one of the top ones in the world, and set some records. I'm proud of that. I also write books, and my real passion is helping people realize that we can remember better than we think we might be able to.
Yeah. How'd you get into this?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I worked for about 3 years off and on in Japan, and I just felt it was appropriate, nice, polite to learn the language if I was going to be there that long.
Yeah.
So before I went to the local college and I found a textbook on, how to, a Japanese textbook, here's, Japanese 101. Here's how you learn Japanese. If I was going to take their class, I would get that textbook. So I got the textbook. I figured, no, it's good enough for the school. It's good enough for me. And I was looking at it going, oh, this looks hard. So I went to,
it's like a whole new language.
I went to, this is dating me, Walden's Books. Walden. Yeah. And I was looking, like, I asked the person there, I said, I don't have any idea how am I going to handle this. She's like, you should check out a book about how to remember things. Maybe they'll have a section in there. And I found a book that had a section about how to remember languages. And I got that in the textbook, and off I went for that trip. Was 6 months. I sat and I memorized, or I read the book about how to remember, and then I read the textbook, and I do, okay, back, forth, back. And it just clicked. I remembered. And I'm not a genius or anything, but I found myself really picking up the language really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, these are great, but I never really had a use for it anywhere else in my life. I was in my 20s. Memory tends to be pretty good in our 20s. We just naturally focus on things well. Well, fast forward another 20 years, turning 40, and I walk into rooms and I don't know why I'm there. I forget things in the car, and the wife tells me to go to the grocery store and get this, and I come back with bags full of groceries, and she's like, well, where's the oregano? Oh, that's why I went to the grocery store. So I was like, boy, this is 40. I always thought it was just a number, but as it turns out, this is going to be bad. What's 50 going to be like? What's 60 going to be like, or 70? And I decided to see if I could do something. So I got the book off the shelf. I still had it. And I read about it. And there wasn't anything really about getting older, but it kind of ignited a spark in me to see, like, I'm just going to be my own test subject. Can I improve my memory at 40? Is this something that's an innate talent, or is it something that can be learned and improved? Kind of like sales. Some people think, well, sales, you either have it or you don't. And other people like you have proven, no, I can take you, and if you have some basic competence in being a human being, I can show you how to sell. So that's what I did. I threw myself into it. I experimented. I said, does that work? Does that work? Well, what if I take vitamins? What if I take this supplement? What if I exercise? What if I sleep better? What if I meditate? And eventually found the things that work for me. And since then, I've taken other people and helped them discover that it's a repeatable process. And now I'm in my 50s, and my memory is getting better, while my friends their memories are getting worse and worse. If only you knew someone who could help you with that.
Yeah.
So,
and most of the people I talk to already think they have a great memory. Until it's tested.
Yeah, until it's tested. And really that's the case. And, nobody really, this isn't rocket science, unless it is rocket science to you, but it's not rocket science. If you forget someone's name, it happens. People don't expect perfection. I think it becomes a problem when it's a part of your career, and also it's a part of your home life. Because I talk to a lot of people that say, I have a great memory at work.
Yeah.
But I cannot remember a thing that my spouse tells me, or my kids say this and that and the other. And then the next week they're like, Mom, Dad, don't you remember? I told you about that. And I have no idea. So there's kind of two sides of that coin. Some people are great with their home life because their family is so important to them. Some people are not great with their home life because they're thinking, well, the work, this is where the money comes from. So I got to be serious about this. And they really put their focus and effort at it. So, but if we make mistakes now and then, it's not a big deal. But like with sales, if if you and I are competing for a sale, and you say, "Oh, I'm not sure if we have that, or if we have it in blue, or I think that's on sale, but let me check all those and give you a call right back." And they
But
talk to me, and I go, "Boom! Yeah, we do have that in stock. In fact, we have 4 in stock, and we have it in blue and baby blue, and it's on sale. It's 30% off this week."
and I think what salespeople run into is that performance anxiety. Like they're
Mm.
in front of a client or on the phone with them, and they're trying to listen to the client, talk about what the product does and why they need it. And then after the call, they go, gee, I wish I said this. Or that's what they were really getting at when they asked that question.
Yes, and that happens a lot. I work with students too, basically grade 3 through 8. I do a lot of school presentations because this is essential for business and also schools. And that's very typical if you have kids or grandkids. You talk to them, and they, in the morning over breakfast, you're quizzing them about stuff, and they've got the information. And then you talk to them over dinner. How'd you do at the test today? Oh, horrible. I couldn't remember. Well, what was, and you ask them some things, and they know it then, but they don't know it during the test. It is that
Panic
pressure.
or
and
choking. Yeah.
and that's the one of the things I was concerned about when I started the process of, can an ordinary person improve their memory, was thinking, I either remember or I forget. Where's the process? Where's the steps? It's just a moment in time. And it turns out that remembering is 3 distinct steps. We have to get the information, we have to save it in our minds in a way that makes sense, we can get it out, and then we have to retrieve it. And another thing I found from coaching people and doing presentations is that it runs the gamut of where people go wrong. Some people, like I said earlier about, at home versus work, some people just aren't paying attention sometimes. And if you're thinking about, boy, if I make this sale, I get to, I can pay my bills this month, that, so they might say something important and you just don't get it.
Yeah.
But if you're focused on them, you get it. Another thing is, some people get the information, they're fine, they're great listeners, but all this stuff's going in, and it's just so much information, they can't process it, and they get overwhelmed. And then later when they need to recall it, they can't, because they did listen, but they didn't put it in their minds in a way they can get it out later. And some people listen great, have it organized in their mind, and then someone's walking to you and it's like, that's the guy I was trying to sell last week, and the pressure's on, and they blank on the name. That's a pressure situation. So that's a retrieval. So it's really, I mean, a lot of people have all 3 to varying degrees, but it really is up to each person to figure out, my biggest thing is I'm so worried about my memory that I choke, and it's a retrieval. Yeah. So what can I do to manage that little section? Some people are like, I am running so many different directions. I'm working 80 hours a week. My manager's breathing down my neck. I've got a new baby at home. I'm not sleeping. I can't remember. You're probably so scattered, you're not getting the information in. So let's work on that and watch your natural memory take over. So part of my job is to figure out where people are having trouble first, and fixing that, because most people don't have just a full-blown memory crisis. It's usually like one area is the biggest, the second areas, of importance. But if we clean up the first thing, a lot of their natural memory will take over.
And does everybody remember the same way?
I mean, pretty much. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not in the science side of it. But yeah, pretty much everybody remembers. I mean, we take the information in, the way it's supposed to work. We take the information in because we're paying attention. Our brains, our minds know how to remember, because think of the things we remember. I mean, you remember the lyrics to the new song you heard because you like that artist and it's got a good beat, and you listen to it 5 times in the course of a day when it's brand new. You remember just really small things, but so your memory generally works. It's just, are you remembering the things you want to remember? So the memory, we take the information in, it sticks in our mind. Generally, if it's interesting or strange or unique or the first time, it's easier to remember. And then when we need it, it comes out. So everybody, it's the process is the same. Where it breaks down varies for each person.
Now, I've studied this a little bit, bought a
Mhm.
course and stuff, and understand things like pegging
Yep.
and exaggeration
Yep.
and chaining and sequencing.
Yeah, I use a lot more fun words when I do it. It's like you were
Well,
saying in a podcast recently about doing it so it's fun and so it's interesting to people. Peg and a chain. I mean, this is boring stuff, but I know what you're saying. So go ahead.
well, is that the best way to do it, or have you found an easier, funner way of doing it?
I like to present it in a more fun way. I'm not sure if it actually is more fun, but yeah, it's the process is get the information, save the information, and recall it. And there's different ways to do that. My basic thing is to work kind of on the low hanging fruit first, because there's a lot of mnemonics, there's a lot of different techniques. But if you don't know which problem you have, the getting the information, saving it, or recalling it, it doesn't. Working on a peg system or a chain system or a number system may not help you because it's not what you need. You don't need to remember. You need to recall. So that's the systems are generally in the middle.
Yeah.
I call it far. You need to go far with your memory. You need to focus, you need to arrange, and you need to retrieve. So the arrange is where all the kind of the cool things are, like the mnemonics and the number system and your inventory and stuff. I kind of work holistically in the good sense of the word and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Starting with generally focus is what most people need. But yes, in a way it is connection. One of the things one of the techniques I work with people in sales and business a lot is to active listening and care. Because again, if you're focused and listening, your mind knows how to remember, especially if it's important, like you're truly interested in helping the person with your product, and getting and making money. So you do care. But so care stands for commit to being the best listener in the world. You want to win the gold medal in listening. You are locked on. And then that helps you pay attention. It's the A in care, pay attention. And to make it stick in your mind, to make what they're saying memorable to you when you're committed and paying attention, repeat what they say. So someone says, oh yeah, and I hate such and such brand of car. Oh, you hate, that car. Just say the word. Just say, oh, Datsun. Oh, you don't like Datsun. Okay.
Yeah.
And then envision Datsun. Maybe I'm using Datsun because they're not around anymore. I don't want to pick on a car dealer or a car company. So envision them in an old, blue with a white, I think it was a baby blue white striped Datsun that my aunt had. So, and then just take a second while you're listening and nodding. You go, okay, Datsun. And then picture it like just getting out of it and they're smashing with a hammer because they hate that color.
Yeah. That's another technique.
They hate the color blue or anything like that. So there are some mnemonics, there are some systems in there. It's not really the peg system or
it's exaggeration.
Exaggeration, yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking in pictures. The scientists have done tons of studies. The mind thinks in pictures and remembers pictures really well. That's why movies are often easier to remember that you saw that movie as opposed to reading that book. So even though we're reading a fiction book and we're, kind of picturing it in our mind, it's not as pictured as watching, Brad Pitt on the screen do something. So if we can help our mind think in pictures by translating things, we need to know a name, an inventory list, the price of a house for sale, whatever it is, into an image, that's just going to be right more there than anything else.
Well, let's take that, because that's probably one of the best return on investments would be being able to remember names.
Yes.
Because like you get on a webinar and there's 5 people and, sometimes the name is on the screen and they go, no, I'm Jack, I'm Joe, I'm Joe. And that's fine when they're easy names and you write them down, but then you get names you're unfamiliar with. Yes.
Actually, I find it really easy to remember the unfamiliar names because it's like Nafisa. If I have a friend named Nafisa, and the first time I met her, I was like, Nafisa, whoa, I've never heard the name Nafisa before. I've got to pay attention to that. And my mind latched on it, like, say that again. And I asked her to say it again. She's Nafisa. And one of my techniques, and I can show you this, is the first conversation, especially if you have that kind of that fear we were talking about earlier, or the tension around, maybe choking about a name. The first conversation from now on is just to have a conversation with someone about their name. Yeah. Oh, Brian, is that with Brian or is it Bryan? Okay. And you can then, for some names, it's, if it's a Jen, you can say, oh, is that 2 N's or 1? That's drawing your attention. So you're getting the information, you're focusing. That's helping your mind right there. And then you can add another level of, oh, is that short for Jennifer? Or if you think of another Brian that's famous, you can go, okay, I've got a friend named Brian Baldini. That's another thing you can do. If you know someone that is named Brian, then you start looking at their face and go, okay, well, he's got kind of spiky up hair. Now, my friend Brian is like flat, straight hair. You can't do a thing with it. And you start drawing your attention. And I mean, you could call that a peg, but or an association. But it's drawing your attention, and it's working with your mind instead of just going, "Great, well, Brian, where are you from?" So when Brian walks up to you later on, you're going to remember, oh, he's from Iowa. But what's his name? You want to remember the important thing, which is his name. So I always say, ask a question first about the name. Have a conversation. Oh, how did your family decide to name you Brian? Oh, yeah. Okay. And if you can say it a few times without being creepy, I mean, this is kind of a common sales technique. I have 3 different techniques in my latest book on how to remember names for people who are really serious about it. My favorite is trying to picture someone or a famous person who has the same or a very similar name, and then connecting them together in your mind with a fun image. I'm picturing you and my friend Brian high-fiving.
There you go.
Yeah. My friend Brian juggles. So I'm picturing my friend Brian juggling and like throwing the juggling clubs at you, and you going, I don't juggle. What are you doing? Yeah. That's a crazy image. I can do that while having a conversation with you. And when I see you next, I'm going to be like, I know him. And I'm going to picture, you and my friend Brian high-fiving, or my friend Brian throwing the clubs at you. And it's going to snap into place. So it's just a way of working with your mind instead of, a lot of times as we get older, we're encouraged strongly to be more grown up and be more serious. And we lose that part of ourselves that wants to play and that's creative and intuitive. And we think, well, I have to be logical. And there's no logical reason your name is Brian.
Well, also, you're going to remember, I would think you'd remember emotional things easier than logical things.
Yes, absolutely. And again, the visual with my exaggeration method or mnemonic for remembering that you need to remember to be exaggerating is cast, color, action, silliness, and taste or texture. If you can convert the things you need to remember into images and then add cast, that really makes things easy to remember. It's kind of strange. After you practice it just a little bit, it's almost magical. It's just your mind just starts clicking. It's a strange
habit.
Yeah, it's a strange thing once you, and it's kind of like anything really, golf or
any skill,
running. Yeah, any skill. Playing pool. The first several times you do it, and then like with golf, you might have a great shot. And you're like, "Ooh, this is fun," and you want to repeat that. And as you get better at it, it just becomes that habit. And you get up in the morning and you run, or you go out on Saturday and you play golf, and it happens well, and you get better at it. And the thing is, in this day and age, especially, people are using their phones to remember, or they're not even trying their CRM. You talk a lot about CRM being tied to your CRM and how it's not always about the CRM. If you can't remember things except if you're sitting in front of your computer or you have the CRM app on your phone, That's bad. So a small improvement. One of your earlier guests on the podcast was talking about, like a 1% improvement or a 2% improvement, a 4% improvement. That people label that as luck. Well, no, I'm doing these little things that add up to a 10% improvement, and all of a sudden I have this great year. Oh, you had a lucky year. No, I improved. I did 4 different things that got me 10% better, and I had a 20% better year. This is one of those things, and a little bit of improvement in our memory compared to the other guy or the other woman makes you look superhuman. It's incredible. People look at me. I mean, yeah, I've set records and stuff, but people look at, maybe a better example would be people I've worked with, and they're like, "Oh, he's amazing," or "She's incredible." It's like, I look at them and go, well, yeah, they're better, but are they incredible? Are they world class yet? No, they wouldn't do very well in the memory competition, but compared to the, a mere mortal, they are incredible. And that can really set you apart.
And what's the right way to become better at memory? Is it to set aside n number of minutes a day? Is it to do a simple exercise or routine every day? Is it to start with names or start with your day or your presentation?
Question. That's a great question. Of course, for anybody, there's going to be a variety of methods. What I recommend, some low-hanging fruit, quick things. Make sure you get enough sleep. You're not multitasking. You're focused on one thing at a time. You're eating well. You're living right. You're doing some form of meditation, whatever that is for you, jogging, sitting out on the back porch in the after work, and with your family and relaxing, whatever it is to detox and just relax and give your brain a break. And then to improve specific things, my number one tip is when you brush your teeth every morning, every night, we're brushing our teeth. And when you do that, you think about what you've done in the last several hours. Okay, who did I meet today? Who did I meet at the mixer? Who did I talk to? What were the important calls I made today? What do I need to remember about today? And for business people, salespeople, I say, how the old thing where, plan tomorrow today. So at the end of the day, you write down, okay, this is my schedule tomorrow. This is my day. So you don't go home with everything a jumble. You don't show up in the morning going, oh, gee, I wonder what I should do to sell today. You have a plan already. I add to that and say, write down your notes on what you need to remember, and just writing down Brian, or just writing down Blue Dotson, just a cue. That will trigger. Just write down 5, 10, 15 cues, whatever you need to remember tomorrow, today, to commit to long-term memory. So you come in the morning, you'll be like, oh yeah, oh that's right. And those things will click. As far as like really throwing yourself into training, there are some apps, of course, and there are some websites. My favorite thing is to recommend about 10 minutes a day. There's a website I really like. It was originally started by a friend of mine. It's called memoryleague.com.
Okay.
You can do a few things on it for free, and then it's like $25 a year. And it's like an app. You get 60 seconds to memorize as many people's names as you can. Well, there's 30, so 30 pictures. And then you try to do it faster and faster and faster. 30 is a lot to memorize in 60 seconds. Or you can do numbers, or you can do images, like there'd be a picture of a rainbow, and a picture of a dog, and a picture of a frog, and a picture, just a close-up abstract picture of a tire or something. And you got to remember the order that they're in. There's a variety of exercises, and if memory is a big problem for you, training to become an amateur memory athlete is similar to, if you want to get into better shape, you can train for the local 5K. It's that same type of thing. It's something to keep track of. Oh, I did better on my run this week than I did last week. I did better at names this week than I did last week. It's something you can keep track of. So I do recommend an app or something like that, and training every day.
Now, one last question. Is memory separate from intelligence? Let's say you, and I think the problem today is everybody puts everything into the CRM and they stop thinking about it.
Yes.
Okay, put it in the CRM, but keep thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent in my my latest book. My publisher, I put a chapter in there that recommended writing things down. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go over with my publisher that a book about memory has a chapter about, write it down, have a system, but, it's good enough for airline pilots to have a system, even if they've flown for 20 years. If it's mission critical, you write it down, you put it in the CRM, but make the CRM or your sticky note or writing it on your hand or whatever, make that your backup.
Yeah.
Don't make it your primary. Make it your backup. Commit to remembering as the primary and the CRM or whatever as the secondary.
Yeah.
And it's funny with memory. I'll give you hits close to home. Memory versus intelligence. My wife, very smart person.
Oh, careful.
Oh no, she knows. We talk about it a lot. She's very smart. I'm very smart. I've got a good memory. She's got a decent memory. In our house, if we're out somewhere and someone says, "Oh, you're from out of town, you should go down here and check out that restaurant," and they give us quick directions, that's me. That's my role in our relationship.
Yeah.
If it's "Oh, you know what? We got to help her mom or my mom with such and such," that's my role. I know that's my cue. I got to remember that. If it's "Honey, the gate, I can't figure out how the gate is stuck or won't fix or can't fix it, or this lock is broken, or something needs to be dealt with physically in this world," that's my wife, because she's brilliant with that.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine is brilliant in a different way. We all have different ways that we're really intelligent. Memory is one way. It's what I'm good at because I've worked at it. I think if I was, I'm also really good with computers because I've worked at it.
Right.
I'm horrible. If the lawnmower needs to be fixed, we call the guy, because that's not me. Could I get better at it? Certainly. If there was a coaching program like you have for sales for here's how you can know everything you need to know about your riding lawnmower, I wouldn't be on that. I just make the call. But memory, unfortunately, is not something you just make the call for. You can't just call me and say, here are the things I need you to remember today. You can with your CRM, but that's not going to impress anybody when you're face-to-face with them.
Cool. And for people who are listening, where should they go to get your book, and which one should they start with, and what's your recommendation there?
Well, easiest way to remember is just remember my name. It's Brad. So instead of imagining me, Brad, how are you going to remember the name Brad? Well, imagine it's Brad Pitt that you've been talking with or listening to
so much alike. So
yeah, we do look so much alike. Thank you. And for the last name, it's Zup. So picture that, that movie Up, the old man with the balloons on his house, Up. Picture a zebra on his front porch, Z-U-P, and there's just one more P at the end. So if you go to Amazon and type in Brad Zup, you'll see my books. Probably Mastering Memory, 75 Memory Hacks is the newest one, and has a whole section about how to remember better at work, including for salespeople and for people who just need to remember names well. Like I said, there's 3 different ways. That's probably the best one. Another real passion of mine is password security and internet security. And I do have a book specifically about how to develop your own hack-proof password system just by using your memory. It's so much easier than you think it is. And I do a lot of presentations in schools and for corporations for people that, need to know how to remember to impress their clients and their colleagues and their bosses. And it's bradzup.com. So you remember Brad Zup and you got everything.